Jag minns ju den tid du gav mig life villa yo. Nu vill jag kunna ge tillbaka allt jag inte kunna ge förut. Det finns ingen annan där som kan stå här by my side, oh why. Sättet du rör på det får mig att dö för det baby. För de här yardis, de vill ju bara dra ner oss. Men du är fett och vanlig. Och det jag lägger av min tid och jag vill ha det. Du får mig känna safety. Vi kan nog det baby. Och jag kommer aldrig ändra mig. Aldrig kommer aldrig känna så här för någon annan än dig. Aldrig kommer aldrig känna så här för någon annan än dig. Varje gång jag bak på dig, jag tänker åh vilket kap jag gjort. Jag skulle gå tillbaka till tid, göra om allt igen och förstå. Ser det som ett allt, det är det jag vill wifa. De här yardis, de vill ju bara dra ner oss. Men du är fett och vanlig. Och det jag lägger av min tid, jag vill ha det. Du får mig känna safety. Vi kan nog det baby. Och jag kommer aldrig ändra mig. Aldrig kommer aldrig känna så här för någon annan än dig. Aldrig kommer aldrig känna så här för någon annan än dig. Jag vet inte bara life om jag ändå. Jag vet inte bara ta din del. Jag vet inte bara life och ändå stay with me. Jag vet inte bara life om jag ändå. Jag vet inte bara ta din del. Jag vet inte bara life och ändå stay with me. Du lägger till, du är där för mig. Jag svär mitt liv kretsar runt dig. Du bär på mina bebek så att när jag visionerar vår framtid. Låt mig hålla dig baby. Kommer aldrig känna så här för någon annan än dig. Aldrig kommer aldrig känna så här för någon annan än dig.
All right. Welcome to Corporate Junky. I am your man, Corp J. And thank you all for joining me on this live video. I am excited to really bring you all this topic. So this is a call-in show. So for anyone who wishes to call in later on in the show, I have dropped the link. The link to the actual call-in is in the chat, so you can just kind of use that to call into the show. But anyhow, I've got a great show for you all today. We are going to be talking about the history of Afrobeat. I am going to be giving you guys a deeper perspective on the history of Afrobeat. Now, there's a lot of conversation around this. There's a lot of conversation about Afrobeats with the S and Afrobeat without the S. And so I'm going to be going over a lot of that history with you. It's a conversation that has sparked a lot of controversies. It's a conversation that has, it's a very passionate conversation right now that we're all having. Countries in the African continent are having this conversation. Now, there was also, I'm going to talk to you guys about a recent documentary that was also released in regards to this particular conversation. It was released by a gentleman named Shonaiya, and it's called Afrobeats: The Backstory. I'm going to talk to you about this particular documentary, and I'm going to tell you why this documentary, in my opinion, and based on what I saw in the documentary, really causes more confusion around the topic of Afrobeat and the history. I'm going to give you my perspective, and I'm going to highlight certain part of what the documentary really kind of focused on, what it failed to really do, and why it caused more of a confusion and really murky the water, and didn't really do what I thought the documentary should have done. And then I'm going to give you my own perspective regarding the whole story and the incident around Afrobeat and Afrobeats with the S. Why that really takes away from Nigeria's legacy and denies and steals from Nigerians and their legacy. I'm going to talk to you about that. And then I'm going to really open up the line for anyone wanting to call in about it. So we've got a lot to cover. Okay, so let's go into it, because I've got quite a few things that I want to go over with you guys. So on the documentary, first of all, I want to say that kudos to the brother, Shonaiya. Kudos to him for really even attempting and taking a stab at the whole topic and try and at least presenting some type of data or historical reference to what we know today as the music genre, Afrobeat and Afrobeats. So kudos to him. It is not easy to really put a documentation or documentary like that together. From my understanding, it took years for him to put that together. So kudos to him for at least putting something out that so some of us can kind of reference some of the events that we all know that took place, some of the artists that really kind of played certain role. So kudos to him on that part. Now, however, I want to go ahead and talk to you guys about what that documentary really failed to do and what damage that documentary did. Understand that this documentary is an opinion of one man. It is not based on the history of Afrobeat, as I am going to uncover on this video. It is an opinion of one man. It is one man's perspective, okay, based on his experience, based on his optical vision, and he told you that. I mean, this is words from Shonaiya. He actually says it, that this is his own experience, right? So understand that is not a history of Afrobeat. The documentary Afrobeat, the backstory, isn't a history of Afrobeat. At least it's not a detailed history of Afrobeat. Okay? So the documentary covers only a certain part of the timeline. In my opinion, based on the 12 episodes, and there are 12 episodes, the last 2 episodes is what I find problematic. Episode 11 and 12. Most especially episode 12, and I'll tell you why later on, because that particular episode, in my opinion, is where I think that the gentleman really caused more of a chaos and a divide. And there's a one-liner he made in that documentary that I am going to tell you later on why that is problematic, as well as tell you why that documentary further really deny Nigerians the credit and the legacy of Afrobeat and Afrobeats. Okay, so it goes through 10 episodes, most of which in when you really watch the episodes, really spends and delves into a lot of the new sound that we have today. Not the old fella sound, not the old Afrobeat sound. It delves into that a little bit, but not in detail. Most of what the documentary really covered were like the new age type of sound, where today's Afrobeat is a mixture of pop culture, Western culture, and Western influence. So you find him really kind of walking through the timeline of, the 90s, the 99, and all the way to our present moment. So he highlights certain key artists that really made a pivotal impact on the music today, which I wouldn't really argue on that part. But again, though, that particular timeline and what the documentary really focused on are what are the Afrobeats with an S. Okay, I'm going to tell you why the Afrobeats with an S is problematic and why I don't agree with it, and why I think that it's really denies Nigeria and dilutes the legacy of Fela, who created Afrobeats. So let's talk about, I'll get back to the documentary. Let's talk about the history of Afrobeat without the S. And I've mentioned this already in one of my past videos. So Afrobeat, as is documented, which this documentary failed and really didn't uncover in depth, was founded back in the 60s, and it wasn't until the 70s that the name Afrobeat was actually given to the particular sound that Fela created and was really kind of dabbling into in the 60s, late 60s, all the way into the 70s. In my past videos, I mentioned how, Fela studied in London, in the London School of Music. And right after he came back home, he was heavily influenced by quite a few genres that really existed before Afrobeat really existed. Genres like jazz, juju music, Fuji, high life. These were heavily influenced and played a role in the formation, or at least playing a role with Afrobeats. Now, that is not unusual, okay? Because every music genre that exists has borrowed or has been influenced by previous music genre. So that is not a new thing. So if you think about like the music genres that we know today, let me take, for example, hip hop. Hip hop was heavily influenced by reggae. Okay. As a matter of fact, the founder of hip hop, DJ Kool Herc, was a Jamaican national who flew in, or who immigrated from Jamaica to the United States, West Bronx, and hip hop was founded. Same thing with rock and roll. Same thing with pop music. Same thing with jazz. All of these music that existed in their own time really were affected or influenced by previous music genre that predates them. Okay, so that's very important to know that. So the same with high life. High life was heavily influenced by calypso. Calypso music genre is a creation of Trinidad, the Caribbeans. So that existed way back in the 18th century. So we're talking about during the slavery era. That's when calypso sort of emerged in the 18th century. Then high life emerged in the 19th century, or 20th century, I should say. High life emerged. So high life was around in 1920, 1930. That's when high life really kind of took root. And then Afrobeat later on in 1970. So understand the steps and the progression of this music. It plays a huge pivotal part in this. Now, why am I going through all of that? The reason why I'm going through all of that is because in the documentary, and this is the problem I have with the documentary. This is why I said the documentary did not do what I thought the documentary should have done. I thought this documentary was a history of Afrobeat, hence his name, the backstory. But it was not the history of Afrobeat. As a matter of fact, it did not even touch the history of Afrobeat. It didn't go in depth into what I've just talked about in terms of timeline, in terms of all of that. It just really kind of stayed on the surface. Spent more of the episodes were more focused on the new age artists that we know. So talk about people like the Tribesmen that were in the 90s, the Plantation Boys, the Remedies, those groups that existed primarily in the late 80s, all the way into the 90s. That's where this, and all the way into, what we know today as the type of style and artists that we know today. So that's what the documentary really focused on. So it didn't go as far back into the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, all the way into the 1800s. Didn't do all of that. Okay. And that's important for you to understand that the inspiration for Afrobeat was heavily influenced by music genres that predates both high life as well as Afrobeat with an S. Okay. Now, what the problem I have with this documentary and why I think this is a problem is because while we are in this heavy, intense, or highly, what I would call highly contested or highly debated era in terms of the question of Afrobeat, and he knew this. I think Dyer knew this, with all due respect, which is why I think he waited till the last 2 episodes to really delve into the history of Afrobeat. Because I would imagine when he was putting this conversation together, putting this documentary together, if he had placed episode 11 and 12 right at the beginning of the episode of the season, I think people would have tuned on. I think he would have lost a lot of people because most people would have disagreed with his stance and disagreed with his historical reference on the origin of Afrobeat. So I think as a strategy, he waited all the way till episode 11 to begin talking about the history of Afrobeat, Afrobeat with the S and Afrobeat without the S. And then the episode 12 was where he literally, in my opinion, really failed in this documentary, in my opinion, respectfully. And I say this because he equates the origin of Afrobeat with high life. You would find him throughout these 2 episodes really kind of pinpointing that Afrobeat really emerged from high life. Okay? You would find him, and at one point on the episode 12, he literally made a statement that Afrobeat comes from high life. Now that is a very false statement. Okay? So I'm going to challenge the premise of that. And here's why I'm going to challenge that. Because it's to make that type of assumption, or to make that kind of statement, I will say, is to give credit to high life Ghanaian music, as though Ghanaian music was the only music that Fela, right, was inspired by. Okay, he's making sense of what Afrobeat and where Afrobeat really came from. So to say that Afrobeat without the S, which obviously Afrobeats with the S was really spawned from Afrobeat. To make this statement that was the foundation of it was high life is a wrong statement and is not true, because that gives the whole entire credit to high life, which is why a lot of Ghanaians claim hold to Afrobeat origin, and that is not true. Because understand that during Fela's time, okay, high life was now becoming popular. But Fela was also heavily influenced by funk, was heavily influenced by juju music, was heavily influenced by Fuji, was heavily influenced by jazz. All of these genres make up what Fela now formed into his own music, what he now put together, the formula of what we now know today as Afrobeat. High life played a portion of it, just like what we have today. It is not unusual for a new music genre, as I mentioned earlier on. It is not unusual for a music genre which is started, or music genre that is a new one, to be heavily influenced and inspired by previous music genre. Every music genre did this. Hip hop did that with reggae. Hip hop also did it with rock and roll. Hip hop did it with a lot of even jazz. You find that with hip hop. Now, would you now say that hip hop, the reggae founded hip hop, or hip hop was formed out of reggae? That would be a wrong assessment to say. Okay? So what he did, which I think it was very irresponsible to put that type of information out there, was he literally gave the impression or put out into the production that Ghana alone and High Life alone formed Afrobeat. And that is not true. That is factually incorrect. Okay? That is factually incorrect. Now, the part that I would concede to was the naming of Afrobeat. Okay? It is true that the name Afrobeat was given to Fela by a Ghanaian. It is true. As a matter of fact, we know this because, Tony Allen said so. And Tony Allen was the drummer for Fela's band. He was one of his partners. So he traveled around with Fela. As a matter of fact, which he uncovered in the documentary, and I've even seen other articles on this. Tony Allen said that a promoter that they were working with, when Fela had formed his music, which he formed in Nigeria, okay? When Fela had formed the music, he didn't know what to call it. But he knew that the music flavor and the style was a lot different from what was already existent. It was different from High Life. It was really different from funk. It was different from Fuji. It was different from Juju music. Even though all of these genres really influenced his music style, but his style was a lot different from every of these music genre. So it was actually a Ghanaian who suggested the name Afrobeat. Now, does that mean ownership? No. Simply suggesting a name does not give you ownership. If I give birth to my child and you suggested a name that I call my child, does that make it your child? Does that make my child your child? Let me give you another one. If I formed a business, I came up with all the strategy of a business. I come up with the marketing strategy. I come up with the logistics. I come up with the blueprint for the business. And you simply just gave me a name for the business. Does that make it your business? No, it doesn't. Okay? You will never find any legal precedence of ownership on that. Okay? It doesn't give you ownership. So that is a fact. The fact that Afrobeat, which is factual because it comes from Tony Allen would know. Okay? So he says that Ghana, a Ghanaian, gave the name suggestion to Fela, and Fela accepted it as Afrobeat. But that does not mean by any means whatsoever that Ghana formed Afrobeat. It also does not mean that Afrobeat was heavily influenced by High Life. High Life played a role as well as every other music genre, as I mentioned early on. So that is the part that he failed to really drive home. And I'm going to tell you that his final statement in saying that High Life, Afrobeat is a foundation of High Life, is also false. That's why I say it's false. Because it's literally taken away from the legacy of Nigeria and the legacy of Fela. Okay, because High Life was heavily influenced by Calypso. So should the Caribbeans now go out and say that they founded High Life because High Life was heavily influenced by Calypso? Should they even say that they own High Life? See, if you see how you can go down that road if you start to really kind of murky the waters. It makes a difference where a music is formed. It makes a difference where a music is founded. Okay, so there are two things that tie a music back to a culture. Two things. The location from where the music was founded and the people or the group that found the music. Those two things make a difference. That's how you tie a music or a particular style of music back to its origin. Those two things. It matters where it was founded, where that person was at, or the group of people were when it was founded. Okay? And it also matters who found it. Those are the two things you can tie music back to. It's the same thing with hip hop. If DJ Kool Herc had founded hip hop in Jamaica prior to coming to the United States, it would not be owned by the United States. It won't. It would be Jamaican. Okay? Same thing as we know reggae. So it's important where a music is founded. Same thing with rock and roll. If these music were founded outside of the United States, it would not be owned or claimed by the United States. It would be claimed by wherever it was founded. So that's important to know that. So when Fela founded Afrobeat, or the sound and the flavor of Afrobeat was founded in Nigeria and was founded by a Nigerian. Okay, so that's clear. Understand that. So now that brings me to Afrobeats. Okay, so let's talk about Afrobeats with the S. And let me tell you why that is that's why Afrobeats with the S really takes away from Nigeria's legacy. Let me tell you why it robs Nigeria of its legacy, and why that documentary further helps it to rob Nigeria of its legacy. See, when we're talking about culture, when we're talking about music, it is important for you to understand that when you have something like a culture and you have music, music ties, it's a legacy. Okay? It's important to understand that. It's a legacy, which is why many countries protect the ownership of these legacies. It is not as easy, as simple as just, okay, it sounds great and we make money from it and we're all good. No. You have to understand that it goes deeper. It represents a people, it represents a culture, it represents a history, it represents a lot of events. All that is tied to music. It is not just a bunch of melodies and strings and beats to put together. There's a story behind that. And if you don't understand that, you're going to dilute it by adding what I call an S to something that's already a legacy. You understand what I'm saying? Okay? Because Afrobeat is a Nigerian legacy founded by Fela Kuti. Now, I understand that the sound today that we're hearing today is far different from what we know as the sound that Fela did, which included a lot of Fuji, a lot of jazz, a lot of what I've just talked about. I get it. But does that mean that we changed the name? Does that mean that we now dilute it by putting an S? Because that's exactly what that is. Having put in an S to Fela's song dilutes and takes away from that legacy. That's one danger. The other danger is the Afrobeats that was created by these guys from England, DJ Abrantine, right? The guys from Capital Extra that formed this new sound because they tried to whitewash it, which I would get to that later on. What that does is it merges everybody and piles every country in Africa into one pool. So the question now becomes, who owns Afrobeats? What country does Afrobeats with an S represent? Because what I will tell you from the documentary is, even though he conflates a lot of the definition, 1 minute it's Nigeria, because he interviews mostly Nigerian artists and really kind of spends a lot of the documentary interviewing with Nigerian artists. Okay, so one would argue that, it's Nigeria, right? But then on the other hand, he interviews Ghanaian artists. So which is it? And then what we understand today, and the category that the world has given, the world now has labeled, based on this confusion of the S on something that was already perfect, the world now labels all these songs and every music coming out of Africa Afrobeat, which is a wrong classification of the music, because Afrobeat does not represent Ghana. Afrobeat does not represent Cameroon. Makossa. Afrobeat does not represent High Life or represent Amapiano. Afrobeat doesn't do that. Okay? And so what does Afrobeat, who owns Afrobeat? Is it Nigeria? Because that's not what's going on right now. That's not what's going on. The way this has now become very murky, right, is that the Afrobeat with an S has now made one music genre that represents the entire continent. And there's no other time in history where such thing has ever happened. None other time. There's never been a time in history where one music genre represented an entire continent. For example, hip-hop. When hip-hop was founded, hip-hop did not represent the entire black race. Hip-hop represented a specific group of people in the United States, African Americans. Let me give you another one. Rock and roll. That didn't represent the entire Europeans on the continent. It represented one particular group of people in a particular country, the United States. I can go on and on and on. And when you think of hip-hop also, hip-hop had different flavors. There was R&B, there was gangster rap, there was regular rap, there was even a couple of raps that sort of emerged in the South. And the rap in the South, which when I lived in Houston at one point, they used to call the style of rapping screws, which was different from what the New York rap was. So rappers in Texas rap differently from rappers in New York. So they all have their own style of rapping, but you know what they called it? They called it rap. You know the umbrella in which they put it under? Hip hop. They didn't add S or X or Y or any other letter in front of it because it's had a different flavor, like what we're doing today. It was called hip hop. Whether it's R&B, hip hop, rap, hip hop, gangster rap, hip hop. There was all under the umbrella of hip hop. You know why that is? Because hip hop was the genre. Period. And that didn't represent the entire black race, by the way. It represented African American and their creation. And guess who accepted it? The streaming platforms. So when you go on hip hop, you can listen to they didn't dilute it by saying, oh, hold on a second. Let's give you a music genre that represents the entire black race on the continent. Why in the world would we allow that to happen to us in Africa? Why in the whole world? Why in the world would you accept a dilution of a music genre that's already existed? Now you're not saying, no, because it sounds different because we put in pop culture, which is fine. I don't mind. I understand music evolves. Okay, I understand that music borrows from different culture. I get it. That's music. That's what historically happens. But do you have to change the genre that music existed from? Okay, so if we say fine, let's make the argument that we want to differentiate from what Fela's music was, which is exactly the reasons why these guys thought to do that. Okay, let's say that's fine. Why are we pulling everyone into one music sound and calling it Afrobeats? Because according to the documentary, you would even find a lot of the artists don't even believe and didn't even agree that their style of music falls under Afrobeats. A lot of artists, Davido doesn't think his music is Afrobeat. He calls his music African music. Burna Boy says Afrofusion. Wizkid calls it Afropop. So there's all of these confusion about what to label your music, which is why now, because you're so confused and because you won't just make it so simple and because you try to dilute your culture, now guess what the West is doing? They're helping you to redefine your music. They're lumping you all together because that's what the West does. The West lumps people together. Is the reason why the West conquered Africa. Let's get some historical context because you don't understand the corporate thinking. See, I'm I'm a corporate junkie. I used to be a corporate junkie. And a corporate junkie basically is someone who has worked with a ton of corporations. That's what a corporate junkie is. So when you think about a junkie is essentially someone who really is addicted to something. So for over 20 years, I've worked with corporations. Okay, I'm talking about a large corporation. I've worked with them, so I know how a corporation thinks. So those are called corporate junkies. Now within corporate junkies is just basically they just work with companies. Okay. Now corporate junkies also work with others that are called corporate 304s. That's what I would call them. That's the nicer version. Okay, these are 304s. Is just for the algorithm. I'm just going to use 304 corporate 304s. The Oloshos. So you guys will know what I'm talking about. Now the corporate 304s are the ones that will do anything. Okay, for the corporation. Your interest is to the corporation. So that's what they call people like that. They fight for the corporate interest. Okay, so I'm going somewhere with this. So we corporate junkies know who the corporate 304s are. These are the ones that will do anything for the corporation. These are the ones that they send to buy out other companies, right? The ones that sit in meetings during mergers and acquisitions. The ones that really kind of are the execs that really help to move a company forward. Now, understand what a corporation, the thinking of a corporation, because this whole thing that we're arguing about, okay, has been decided by a corporation. That corporation, I tell you, is the corporation that was in England. The one that DJ Abrantine worked for. The ones that own the Capital Air Extra that he worked in. I guarantee you when they made that decision, it was for a corporate interest that decision was made. Okay? It's the same interest that most corporations think about. Corporations, when you think of corporations, when you think about corporate interests, and I know this because I've worked with a lot of them, I know how they think. Okay, when a corporation sits in front of you and they are trying to map out a deal, or they're trying to acquire a company, or they're trying to work with a partnership, corporations think in terms of 100 years. They're not thinking in terms of a couple of years. They're thinking in terms of 100 years. And how they are going to stay in existence for 100 years. That is why the number one goal of a corporation isn't to make profit. That is not the number one goal. A corporation's number one goal is not to make profit. That's actually number two. Okay, that goal is more for small business owners. Business owners with employees of 0 to 500. Those are their goal is to make money, is to make profit. A corporation's first goal is not to make profit. That's the second goal. Their first goal is market share. Okay? A corporation's first goal is market share. Is how do we expand our footprints all over the world? Because they understand that if we can gain and acquire little companies, that makes us stronger. There is strength in numbers. You get that? That's how they think, because they understand that if I buy these little companies and I own half of Asia or half of Africa or half of the United States, the profit is just going to come. It's just natural. So their first goal is market share. Now that brings me back to the decision behind Afrobeats. See, when they lumped everybody together, and when people like Shonaiya, with all due respect to him, goes along with the name Afrobeats with an S and puts it in the documentary, I would imagine that he's playing along with the agenda of the corporation. I would imagine when the decision was made to make it an S and lump everyone together, right? I would imagine that that's also is based on corporate interest, because now you go on Spotify, you go on one of these streaming platforms, Afrobeat. That's it. You want to hear a Nigerian song? Afrobeats. You want to hear Ghanaian music? Afrobeats. You want to hear music from Kenya? Afrobeats. Everything is Afrobeat. But guess what you're not going to find? You're not going to find when you come to the West to hear music from the West. Everything is based by category as according to the country. Hip hop, pop, R&B. So why couldn't they do that, for different countries? So now what I'm saying in a sense is, while many of us can say that Afrobeat is Nigeria, because it basically, to many of us, with the S, really aligns with Afrobeat without the S. So the understanding is Afrobeats is Nigeria because Afrobeat was formed by Fela Kuti. But to the world stage, and those that have now hijacked this whole thing, it is not just Nigeria. It is any country in Africa is Afrobeat. So it robs Nigeria of its legacy. It robs Fela of the legacy. Because what happens is 100 years from now, because like I talk about a corporation, 100 years from now, when many of us are all gone and the music has evolved, this Afrobeats with the S is going to be far removed from what we all know to be Fela's legacy. What we all know to be Nigerian music genre. And they would see it as world music. They would see it as African music. They will see it as music that just comes from the country, because that's what this culture here love to do, is lump all of us together. They did that right after the Berlin Conference. When they went and carved Africa off to themselves, they just lumped everybody together. Oh, you guys are Igbos, right? You're Yoruba, Hausa, okay. Even though we had nothing in common, sure, we look the same. Great. Let's put you all together and call you all Nigerians. Hence why we're having the issue we're having today. And now we're letting them do it again with our legacy of music. And which is why guys like Ayo should know better. Should not have used this documentary, which is the first documentary to give us some kind of historical reference on where this came from. Should not have used that documentary as a corporate propaganda to further divide the meaning of Afrobeat. And so you have people now feeling that they can take a part of this, because where is Nigerian sound in this? Okay? Now, understand Nigerian artists are the ones dominating this genre now that's called Afrobeats. We get that, right? What about tomorrow? When let's say, for example, Ghanaians begin to dominate in this era, are their music now going to be Afrobeats? According to the way things are today, yeah. So where is Nigerian sound in this? How do we Nigerians protect our legacy on this? We're not. So this is a problem I have with us Africans, is we don't understand legacy. We don't understand the importance of historical legacy. We don't get it. This is why we are under the same decisions we're in right now. This is why we lost to the Europeans, because we didn't protect that which was ours, and that's why they came and took it. This is why they're all over the continent robbing us of our legacies. In this country, they don't play with legacy. They are building structures that still exist today from the 1700s, from the 1800s. They're building, they don't change that with a fancy road or with your fancy new architecture. You can build around that. They understand what's called historical landmarks. They understand structure because they need their kids to have a sense of pride, a sense of, privilege when they come in contact with that particular landmark or particular historical structure, because it ties back to a legacy We're the only ones that don't get it. We're the only ones. We do things all in the name of kumbaya. Let's make everyone happy. You better start protecting your legacy. Because Afrobeat was Fela's legacy, which is Nigeria's legacy. So now the whole S thing now is to take away from Nigeria's legacy and incorporate everyone into it. All in the name of let's all be unified as one Africa. You can still be one Africa. You don't have to be this. You don't have to be. You don't have to be on a disunity. You don't have to be divided. But we're talking about each country preserving its own legacy. So I would love Afrobeat to stay Afrobeat without the S. That's what it should have stayed at. You can incorporate all this new sounds and new, which is fine. Hip hop did it. They didn't change the name. They incorporated different flavors. They didn't change hip hop to different. They called it hip hop. You don't have to go in and dilute it. You don't have to involve everybody now into what your generation and your legacy built. Because now who owns it? Okay? That's why people like Beyonce. And I want you guys to take a look at this interview she gave, which is very telling. Because when Africa doesn't get its shit together, this is when other countries come in and they just pick at it. Okay? They'll just pick at it. They're just like, great, let's have at it. That's what happens. Right? Because you don't have your shit together. You're fighting amongst, what should we call it? Why call it anything different from what it was already? It was already perfect the way it is. Why do we need to reinvent the wheel? So guess what now? Beyonce doesn't recognize Afrobeats. I want you guys to take a look at the interview she gave. During the time she was releasing her Lion King, The Gift album. Because on this album, she really kind of uses a lot of the Afrobeat artist, right? Here's what she says, which is interesting in this interview. She says, when they were interviewing her about this, okay, she says, we are creating a new genre. She says, I'm working with African artists along with American producers, American artists, and we are creating a new music genre. Why in the world would you be creating something that's already been created? Unless she didn't recognize it to be Afrobeats. So I want you guys to take a look at this.
Single interview about her role in the Beyonce has yet to give a single interview about her role in The Lion King. Not on a red carpet, not on set, nothing. Well, it is changing tonight. She will sit down with Robin Roberts to talk about the movie and her new album that was inspired by the film.
Yeah, the album is called The Gift, and she just released the cover art for it. It'll be out on Friday when the movie opens. So Robin showed a preview of her interview with Queen Bee on GMA this morning.
The soundtrack is a love letter to Africa, and I wanted to make sure we found the best talent from Africa and not just, use some of the sounds and did my interpretation of it. I wanted it to be authentic to what is beautiful about the music in Africa. A lot of the drums, the chants, all of these incredible new sounds mixed with some of the producers from America, we've kind of created our own genre. And I feel like the soundtrack, it becomes visual in your mind. It's a soundscape. It's more than just the music because each song tells the story of the film.
Yeah.
So you see that? We're now creating our own music genre. What are you talking about? What new music genre are you creating? It's already there. It's called Afrobeats. So the fact that she even doesn't recognize Afrobeats because Africa hasn't solidified what sound they want to represent. they want to be represented with. So now it opens you up to people now saying, guess what? I know your music is African music. It sounds African, right? Sounds African because you have, either the 3 beats pattern or the 5 beats pattern or the 4 beats pattern. It sounds African because you use drum. But who owns what sound are we talking about here? So let's just we're trying to create a new one. So now she wants to own the music from Africa. See, that is the danger of where we are. And I think that Nigerian artists, will need they have a responsibility here. Nigerian artists have a responsibility here. Rather than be all confused about what your music sounds like, whatever you're confused about, should we call it Afrofusion? Should we call it Afropop? On all of these infighting, you need to all come together and agree that we are going to represent Nigerians' music, and this is going to be called X. It's going to be called whatever. It's going to be called Afrobeat, if that's what you want to choose. And if you want to call it something else, you need to find what defines Nigerian music. And if it's Afrobeats with an S, then that's what it is. And so now Ghana cannot claim Afrobeats with an S. Cameroon cannot claim that because their sounds don't sound like Afrobeats that we know it. Because right now, when we're allowing the world to define this whole thing for us, they've lumped everybody into it and they're taking the credit away from Nigeria, who is the originator of Afrobeats. That's my problem with this. My problem with it is that it's intending to deny us and take the credit away from Nigeria. And we're not going to let it happen. That's my problem with this. Is that this is trying to deny Nigeria of its legacy and deny Fela of that legacy. That's not going to happen. All for corporate interests. You have to learn from your history. I live in the West. I know how these people think. I know how the corporate interests think. I understand it. You can't sell your legacy for fame. You can't, because you don't own it. You're borrowing for the legacy. You're borrowing that legacy right now. Wizkid, Burna Boy, they don't own that legacy. They are borrowing from it. And I think that they owe that legacy a responsibility. And they owe their country, the country of their origin, in which the music that was passed to them, for them to now use, they owe that, they have a responsibility to it. I think it's a great disservice for a documentary like that, who is made by a Nigerian, not to protect the legacy of Nigeria by reinforcing the facts that we all know, that Afrobeat is a Nigerian creation and none others. Period. No other country debates their legacy. They don't do it so you can be happy with them. They don't do it so you can... No. Their legacy is a legacy. So I for one, I'm not looking forward to season 2. Because what's season 2 going to do? It's just going to reinforce a whole bunch of the garbage that season 1 did. And create more division. And feed into corporate interests. All for the name of being given an opportunity to tell your story by Netflix. So tell your story. Tell it. And don't let corporations determine what you should call your legacy or determine your legacy. That is my problem with this. So, that's why you have a lot of people from Ghana wanting to debate this. So you have guys like Sammy Flex, right? Who, by the way, is one I call a person that sows discord. There's a YouTuber who goes by name of Sammy Flex TV. And the only reason why I know about this person, I don't watch his content, is because on one of my videos, I've had some of my subscribers really comment about him and make comments and about how he just sows division, hatred against Nigerians and all of that. So I went and took a look at one of his content, and sure enough, I found exactly what they were talking about. So the one content I saw, which is my first content on this person ever, and I think he's a Ghanaian YouTuber, was that he was reviewing the new song by P Square, Dyer. And then he goes on about how the song is more I'm on piano and all of that stuff. And then he says something that I find to be very despicable. He makes statements. This is what he says. He says, "Oh, South Africa, you better be ready for a fight because Nigerians are," this is what he says. Nigerians are known to kind of take things that is not theirs to their own self. This is his words. This is why we're in this fight. Ghana is in the same fight that we are in right now with Afrobeats, right? So the premise is that Nigerians are going to steal Amapiano. What in the world? Nigerians have never stolen anything that they didn't earn. Why in the world would Nigerians claim Amapiano? Amapiano is not South Africa. It's not. No Nigerian will ever claim Amapiano. It's South Africa. So this person now is inciting a lot of discord by creating an issue where there isn't any issue. So he's telling South Africans, get ready for a fight. That the Nigerians are going to take your stuff. What? So in other words, he's making reference to the Afrobeat. And he's making reference and claim to Afrobeat when Ghana doesn't own Afrobeat. But you know why he would say something like that? It's because we have guys like this guy that did the documentary who gives credit to Ghana for the creation of Afrobeat, which is factually incorrect. And so guys that don't know their history, guys that don't know their origin, are going to use that because they don't like the fact that Nigerian artists are successful and are very globally recognized. So in order to steal away thunder and steal away a lot of the victory and a lot of the credit from Nigeria, they put an S to something, or they use words like, "Oh, Nigerians are taking away Ghana's creation." There is no historical documentation, and I would dare a Ghanaian, anyone from Ghana, to provide historical fact where Fela formed Afrobeats in Ghana, or Ghana was actually the ones that formed Afrobeat and handed it to Fela. I need you to provide that, because every historical fact and every historical references on this topic was that Fela founded Afrobeat, at least the sound and the flavor of what we know to be Afrobeat, in Nigeria, and it was found by a Nigerian. So now you want to claim it because a Ghanaian gave it the name Afrobeat? Are you seriously kidding me right now? That don't make any logical sense. You might as well give your baby to the godfather for naming your kid. You might as well go ahead and pass your kid over to your godfather or the kid's godfather, godparents, because they gave your kid he or her name. You're not going to do that. So that's why guys like that, that's why I discredit guys like, this Sammy guy. Okay? I mean, production is poorly put together. It's a very poor production. Okay? Because when I hear people that aren't intelligent talk, I have to discredit them and just kind of move them to the side, because you need to go learn your history before speaking. Because if he understood history, he will understand that what he's saying is very damning, because we can also make the claim that Trinidad owns High Life, that Ghana doesn't own High Life, because Ghana borrowed from Calypso. All right, so that is my. I want to understand where you guys are coming from. Let me know if you guys anyone wants to call in. The link is on the chat. You can click on the link And you can call in and tell me if I'm wrong on this. Tell me if what I'm saying is wrong. Right? Tell me what I'm saying is factually incorrect. I want to hear, I want to understand where I'm wrong in this. Okay? Because what I'm talking about is the preservation of legacy. What I'm talking about is the identification of the origin of a popular music genre. What I'm talking about is to ensure that Nigeria doesn't, that no one steals their legacy. Just like I would protect the legacy of Ghana if high life becomes a thing tomorrow, which in the 1920s, 1930s, high life was a thing, was huge, which is why Fela incorporated a part of high life in his music. Nigerians celebrated that. They didn't steal it. They didn't take it for themselves and say, oh, this is ours. So now for Ghana to want to do that to Nigeria is highway robbery. It's not yours. Afrobeat is not yours. It's Nigerians. And every credit to the success of Afrobeat are Nigerians. We own that. You're not going to take it away from us. Period. We're not. I don't care how many false documentary come up to give a diluted version of the history of Afrobeat. It's not going to happen. Okay, it's not going to happen. So that is my issue with this whole thing, right? And so I'm hoping that the artist will begin to really kind of take this and control this, and don't sell your lineage, don't sell your ancestral rights, don't sell your lineage, your legacy for a few dollars. It is your responsibility. It is our responsibility to protect that which we all emerge from. The reason why Afrobeat is successful, and I will tell you that the most successful songs and music by any one of those artists with Afrobeat are the ones that have stayed true to the origin and the culture of Nigeria. I mean, think of any artist. Think of Burna Boy. His biggest music was one he sang with Pidgin English and incorporate the language in his song. Those are his biggest songs. Okay, the ones that he sang with, Ed Sheeran, right? Those are great, but those are not going to be to us one of his biggest songs. They're not. His biggest song, same with Wizkid or Oju Alagba. Those songs that really represent the culture or the songs are the ones that really, right? The ones that are popular with them. Those are the songs. Same thing with P Square, Onyinye. Same song. The songs that really kind of hold the culture of Nigeria are the songs that these artists tap into, and that's where their biggest success is. You're going to need to protect that. You're going to need to protect that. All right, so we're going to, I'm going to start taking calls. I want you guys to call in. So let me go ahead and get set up here, and we will get started here.
It's not my fault. You've been lying, saying that I took away your peace. Drowning by yourself, now you wanna blame me. Like you have no options. I ain't taking options. Now I'm not the problem. Man, that's on you. You've been terrorizing me, girl, I'm always wrong. I knew you lost your mind when you dropped that bomb. Girl, are you crazy? Yeah, you must be crazy. I've been thinking lately it's you. You stole your peace, put it on me, but baby, it's you. I like a ride, but take your stuff back, baby, it's you. Baby, it's you. What did you think? You could say whatever and I would never. You've been flexing everywhere. Girl, look in the mirror. Man, you're so dirty. Yeah, you look so dirty. You were never worthy. Lately, it's you. You stole your peace, put it on me, but baby, it's you. Lie like a ride, but take your stuff back, baby.
All right, let me know if you want to come up. You can come up and give your one opinion about this, or
Baby, it's you. Oh, if I control the weather, then every day would rain on your parade. Shine, you can shade, yeah. If I was Father Time, then I would change the honey. So I never saw your face. I plead. What do I have to do to make you go? Oh, baby, it's you. It's you. It's you. It's you.
all right, we're gonna get this going. Let's go ahead and get this going. All right, what's your name and where you calling from? Hello? Unmute your mic. Yinka, can you unmute your mic here? Going once. All right. Let me know if you guys want to drop. I'm going to give a few more minutes, see if anyone wants to come up. Just tell me your name and what your thoughts is on what I just said on the topic. Hi, hello, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, corporate junkie. This is African Center.
How you doing? How are you?
Great. I just went to YouTube this morning. I don't know. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Okay. I just finished watching this documentary. I wanted to even make a video about it, a review. I have some positive things to say about the documentary, but that aspect of Ghana, man, that the last part, man, when that he made that statement, it is a complete insult, not just to our artists, but to the producers, the engineers behind the scenes who worked tirelessly, created sounds. In fact, he hasn't been talking about Ongaso, that one of the producers borrowed some sound from Japan, I think, here, a Japanese film. So these guys are behind the scenes, cooking beats, working hours, sleepless night, learning, buying material to create something powerful, and then you pick it up and give credit to people that don't even do anything.
Yep.
It's one of the biggest insults to the Nigerian music industry.
Yep.
For example, let's say Whiskey has a house in Ghana now. He's staying in Ghana. And he's making his music. In short, he has left Ghana now. After that Shatta Wale attack, he no longer lives here anymore. Our artists have stopped going to Ghana. Like they have cut off all their journey there. So how can you come and say, oh, Whiskey's success belongs to Ghana because he stays in Ghana and he's making music?
Yep, that is the danger of what is going on right now. And I think that, to your point, exactly to your point, is that when you have an opportunity, okay, because understand that this is the first time a documentary has ever been made around Afrobeat, right? And any documentary produced by such a respectable company like Netflix. So when you're given an opportunity to tell your story, you have to make sure you get it right. You have to make sure you get it right. And to me, the director of this movie, of this documentary, truly failed Nigerians and failed Africans with this. Because when we are all far gone, when we are all gone years from now, okay, his kids, his legacy are not going to stay claim to Afrobeats because of what he did with his documentary. They're not. Okay, our children and our kids, because long after we are all gone, this is going to morph into something totally different because we've now moved away. Now I understand that he's not the one that created the whole Afrobeat with an S. And I understand at one point he even was against it, but then he changed his mind, right? Why he did that, I don't know, right? But to reinforce and defend that is a huge disservice to Nigerians. And to also not go in and talk about the legacy of Fela from the original roots and really credit a lot of the guys that really had those sounds. Guys like, Shina Peters, who was singing juju music, Afro juju music. To not talk about, in depth, guys like, he talked about it a little bit, but to really kind of not dive into those guys, the Sonny Okosun, Sonny Ade, Oyeka Wenu, Raskimono, those guys that existed years ago, which I understand that we don't play those sounds anymore, but not to give Nigeria the credit to where we are today and to sort of murky it and say, oh, it's an African effort. No, it's not an African effort. It is not. That's my problem with it. Are you still there? All right, Yinka, could you unmute yourself, please? Okay. Are you back? All right. So what do you think about what I said?
I think that is a technical issue. People having difficulties on muting themselves. That's why I wanted to speak, but the mic wouldn't allow me to. Yes, I agree with you. He failed to do that. He failed to go back to Fela. See, you see my issue. The problem is that Fela to Nigerians to Africa, Fela is more than music and entertainment. You understand? Fela is a spirit of Nigerians.
Correct.
Fela is a revolution.
Yep.
Fela is a rebel. Fela is a culture. Fela is a festival.
Yep.
That is what Fela is. Fela is a traveler. That is the spirit of Nigeria. Fela is an adventurer. That is how Nigerians are. Fela is a fearless man. He's a dominant. He takes over everywhere he goes. So for Ghana, as docile as they are, culturally as the people, putting claim on it, to us is an insult. We need to make this thing clear. This is why I contacted 3 individuals. I contacted Dyer and one other guy. I said, look, we need to make a documentary called The Rise of Afrobeat. And we're going to explain to people why Afrobeat is no longer about music and entertainment, but it is a socio-cultural revolution.
Yep.
And the Nigerian youth are the ones sponsoring, promoting, and developing. They are creating a new identity of Africa. Before now, Africans are ashamed to identify with Africa.
Yep.
But look at what they are doing. They are changing the narrative. And then you take all this effort. These guys are breaking records, breaking doors, meeting, connecting to international. Then you just take all their effort. Come on. It was very painful when I watched that.
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't know why he did that.
I'll tell you why he did that. I'm going to tell you why he did that, because again, as I mentioned, I've been in corporation for over 20 years. I know how this thing people think. What he did was basically dance to Netflix as well as corporate interests, because it serves corporate interests to lump us all into one, because that way they don't have to create each category and recognize each country's effort. Do you understand that? Because if they have to create, which is what would be normal, right? If they have to create and say Nigeria is Afrobeat, let's leave it the way it is, and let's give Ghana a high life. That what will not happen is every country will be credited for, like Grammys. Every country will be credited for BETs and all of that. So in order not to give one particular country a credit, they classified it as Afrobeat as a continental thing. And that is a problem. That is a problem.
Because I see it is obvious. I totally agree with you, because in the video he actually put Sarkozy and Shatta and not Stonebwoy. These guys are not even doing Afrobeat. They are doing rap and reggae and dancehall. And then he invited Stonebwoy, who is stealing a Jamaican sound, but he's telling Nigerians that we stole their sound. That is the irony. He came and say, you come and took our sound, you stole it. But meanwhile, he is not even doing his own sound. And then he's always angry whenever Afrobeat is mentioned, that they should not lump everything together. But he's the one coming to give interview for Afrobeat. So I agree with you. I see what he did here. And, by putting Sarkozy first and Stonebwoy, trying to put other people so that they will just put everybody here. This is the continental thing. I see the point now.
Yep.
Now it's very clear. But you see, but the problem is this. Afrobeat got a Billboard chart. The people who did that are Nigerian industry, the Nigerian music industry.
Here's where I'm going to disagree with that. You know why?
Okay.
Now,
Let me explain to you first of all. Let me explain to you why I say that. Afro Nation is an industry owned by Nigerians.
Mm-hmm.
2 Nigerians, they founded this Afro Nation.
Correct.
They said, okay, the Nigerian music is now popular in the US. Let us meet these guys, collaborate with them, and help put up the chart. And they agreed. And right now, I'm talking to you, there is a lobby, there is a movement within the Nigerian music industry for Grammy to get, for Afrobeat to get a Grammy category. And you see, the Nigerians are the one pushing this thing. It's not, they are not South Africans. So, you see, the problem is that if it were to be South Africans that are going to push Amapiano to get a Grammy category, they will not say, okay, we're coming to push Amapiano, please add, we're going to also fight for Sukus Makosa, we're going to fight for your Fuji music. They won't do that. They will just fight for their own category.
Right. So here's what I'm going to say to that. So here's why.
Okay.
So I get the Nigerians are pushing this, but they're pushing Afrobeats with an S.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
They're not pushing the music genre Afrobeat. So here's where the problem lies. Afrobeats with an S is not to the world Nigerian music. It's African music. So why Nigerians are dominating right now, why Nigerians are putting that on the map, what Nigerians are doing is putting Africa on the map, which is good. But how do we give credit to Nigeria? Because the same way that Afrobeats with an S is tied to Nigeria is the same way that the world sees that as Kenyan music. Even though we know it's not Kenyan music, we know that. It's the same way they see it as Cameroon music. So Nigeria doesn't get the credit. Africa gets the credit, not Nigeria. So that is the problem I have with this, right? So I don't think that the decision to call it Afrobeat with an S was Nigerian making. I think it was something that was done behind closed doors by a few people that work for a radio station and a corporation to say, let's call it an Afrobeat with an S because it represents, according to them, they supposedly represent all the sounds of pop music, right?
Yes, in Africa.
But that is not that. They shouldn't have done that. They should have left it Afrobeat to Nigeria and then let Ghana produce their own music. Let Cameroon produce their own music. Let everybody produce their own music. So that way each country gets their credit. Now, I also get that Nigerian music can dabble into using a little part of Amapiano to make Afro. I get that. It's okay to do that. But the core of the music of Nigeria will still be Afrobeat, not Afrobeats.
Absolutely.
That's the problem I have.
You know what's funny? Only Nigerians are able to do that. I'll give you an instance where Nigerians use Swahili in their song. They use Zulu. I'm available by Patoranki Cheka. You see him using Xhosa, South African language. You see them. They will use all sorts of languages, even Malian language, Bambara. You know, only Nigerian artists are that versatile. They are able to use other languages just to appeal to their audience. Yemi Alade, for example, she uses a lot of Swahili. They use French to even sing stuff to appeal to these audiences. But other countries cannot copy the Nigerian sound. They can't even use Nigerian language. The moment they do it, their countrymen, they become, hey, why are you trying to sound like the Nigerians? Why are you trying to sound like, especially the Ghanaians? They start fighting them. Why are you trying to sound like the Nigerians? You see? So the Nigerians, they have their own unique style. I understand your point why this whole thing is this Afrobeat will represent the entire. But what I'm saying is that the people who love it for Afrobeat to get a chart, it didn't just happen. The people behind it were the Afro Nation guys.
Yep. And I get that. And you're absolutely right. Let me get this person else in there. Let me get Yinka in here. Thanks for your contribution. I appreciate it. But let me get Yinka in here. Hey, Yinka, go ahead and unmute your mic. Hey, Yinka, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes. Hi. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. My name is Junky. I'm calling from South Africa.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
What is your contribution to the topic?
Well, I've been watching your videos and also of Magaji, and I really like what you guys are doing because I feel like after the success of Afrobeat, somebody just appeared from nowhere to now claim the Afrobeat. I mean, that is like stealing from us.
Yep.
And it's also a disrespect to our country.
Correct.
And some of us are also helping them to push the same narrative. We understand that they have their high life. We respect their high life. We've never tried to call it another name. Even in the East, I know some of the musicians actually do some type of high life, which is okay. They can do Afrobeat if they want, but they must always give credit to the source.
Correct.
Rather than trying to steal it from us.
Correct.
I've been watching Sammy Flex for some time now, and I could see what he's trying to do. And I feel like we've been quiet enough. We need to speak up.
Yep.
We can't just allow this thing to continue.
Yep.
Because the impression he made, I remember when Davido did a concert at the O2, when he was still advertising his concert, they came up to say, oh no, we can see that he's struggling to get people. Why do you have to be negative about things? Anything that has to do with Nigeria, there's this negative narrative that they try to push. And I've been watching all these things for some time now. I was thinking, maybe, but now it's becoming too much.
Yeah. So here,
Like anything we do, yeah.
Yeah. So here's what's going on, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your comment on this. You know, when you think about Nigeria, you think about the negative stigma. There's a lot of people, and this goes political. Okay, this whole thing goes political. This whole thing goes deeper than just music. When you see Nigeria and Nigeria's success, and when you see Nigeria's problem, the country is not without faults. The country is growing.
Yeah.
Okay, the country has a growing pain. Everyone went through the exact same process. This country, the United States, at one point. Okay, a lot of the things that most of people in the United States enjoy today in this country were only enacted and put in place only not too long ago. And this country is over 300 years old, right? So I think that there's a lot of sentiments against the country Nigeria. And I think that, again, this is my observation. So when a music genre like Afrobeat, which is why it's important for every Nigerian who loves Afrobeat and love what these artists are doing, to ensure that you protect it, just like South Africa needs to protect Amapiano, just like Ghana needs to protect their music. Every country needs to protect their own legacy. So the problem I have is now that Nigeria is emerging to become successful through its music. And the artists are working really hard to put the country as well as the continent on the map. Now, the world, as we see it, is attempting to take that credit away from Nigeria and sort of blanket the entire continent as an effort from the entire continent.
Yeah.
And that is not okay. That is not okay.
It's not. It's not. Like if we look at the people that we're talking about, they are top artists. Like Shonaiya sings the Jamaican type of music.
Yep.
Stonebwoy,
Yep.
the same thing. Sarkodie is a rapper. And when this agenda for Afrobeat started, like it's, this Nigerians have pushed this craft, they've pushed their craft to the world. They go to do free shows in some countries just to get the people to, listen to their music. Now that the food is ready, somebody appeared from nowhere trying to steal it.
Yep.
Claiming that it's theirs. That is a disrespect to the country. It is a disrespect to the hardworking Nigerians, and it's a disrespect to all of us. Like, for example, there was a time when Shonaiya did a show and he says, for Nigerian music. I took it personal because I feel like it's a disrespect to me too. Because there's never been any occasion whereby a Nigerian put up a show and say, fuck Ghanaian music or musician. We've never had that. We've never disrespected any country. We respect every country. Despite, yes, we've got the numbers, we've got the population, we still respect every country because we are Africans. So for you to come out and start trying to steal something that people have worked sweat and blood for,
Yeah.
is a disrespect to the whole nation.
Yeah, it is.
So I think we need to put that to rest.
And that's,
that is why I feel like we needed a show like yours and that of Magaji to start telling the truth about us. Yes, we know we've got our shortcomings in certain areas. So our victories also, we will take it as a victory. You can steal our victory from us.
That's correct. And I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Junky. I really appreciate your perspective. Thanks for your point, and thanks for really contributing to this. And what I would say to everyone watching, right, is that make sure you are protecting your legacy. And I will continue to have live shows where I discuss these things because I think it's very important to talk about this. Because this is not just a legacy for Nigeria. This is a legacy for Africa. This is also something that every country in Africa needs to protect their own legacy. We should not let the West define for us what our legacy is. Okay? Because this legacy was passed on by our spiritual and also our forefathers. Passed on this legacy, and is our responsibility. Those that hold, this gift today to preserve it no matter what country you come from and celebrate each other. That means Nigeria should be celebrated today. Tomorrow it could be South Africa. We will celebrate South Africa. The next it could be Ghana. We will celebrate Ghana, or it could be Cameroon. We will celebrate whichever, and that's how it should be. But the idea of really trying to steal each other's legacy or dilute or disrespect one country because you refuse to credit that country for the origin of a music genre that is actually popular today is a disrespect not to only that country, but the entire continent. So that's what I will say about that. So thank you so much for your contribution. And okay, I'll take this one last call and then we'll wrap the show. Alex?
Yeah. Good morning. It's morning here, my brother. How are you?
How are you? Thank you for welcome to the show.
Yeah, that's fine. My name is Alex, and I'm calling from Aberdeen, Scotland.
Welcome. So what are your contribution to what I talked about on the show?
Yeah, fantastic. And I will make my contribution very short. To start with, Afrobeat is from Nigeria, so nobody can claim it with us. Nobody. They are just wasting their time. I understand that people want to associate themselves with success. Fine, they can come to us, they can collaborate with us, but not stealing our success. Let me give you a shock. Shocker. Do you know that even Cameroon are saying that Afrobeat is from Cameroon? I'm not sure you have heard that before.
I'm not surprised. I know
Mongaji will know that. Even somebody, some group in Cameroon are coming to say that a Cameroonian created Afrobeat. You know, we all know that everybody wants to associate themselves with success, but Afrobeat belongs to Nigeria. Fela Kuti.
I appreciate you saying that.
And secondly, the last song by P Square, that is Dyer. Everybody knows that is Amapiano. And I'm surprised that somebody from Ghana is saying that P Square is going to steal Amapiano from Cameroonian, from South Africans. That South Africans should be ready to fight. Which fight? P Square released a song. They never, I'm not sure they said that's not Amapiano. The guy was saying, it is Amapiano. I know this, I know that. Is anyone argue with you that it's not Amapiano?
And that is a point, and that is a good point. That's why I mentioned earlier on that this gentleman, whoever he is,
I don't want to mention his name.
Yeah, these are the type of things that there are certain people that seek to benefit from discord, or they thrive and grow channels from negativity and from discord. So there are people like that do such things. But then you have channels like my channel who will debunk that and call them out. Because to try to plant a seed in the minds of South Africa is to try to create an issue where there isn't an issue. Because no Nigerian today is claiming High Life or Amapiano as theirs. No Nigerian is doing that.
No.
And no Nigerian will ever do that. Nigerians don't do things like that. Right? They will collaborate. They will collaborate with people, right?
We are even helping them to promote Amapiano.
And that is correct. So and that is the part that, because when you think of, and I don't want to put all Ghanaians in this, because most Ghanaians are a lover of Afrobeat. They're peace-loving people. They don't ascribe to a lot of these things. But then you have the ones that follow these types of individuals who feel like if they are loud with your negativity, or they spread a whole lot of this false assumption out there, it'll bring a lot of people to the channel, which is actually the reverse, right? Because these individuals create a discord. Because this is not the same as the Jollof War. that you see going on. This has nothing to do with that, right? But if Ghana does not clean its image, because right now Ghana, and if a lot of Ghanaians aren't standing up to debunk a lot of these things from their own country, they're going to begin to be seen by a lot of other people as agitators that seem to cry foul play whenever they are not winning the race. Do you understand that? Because that's the issue. Because sometimes today is Nigeria. Tomorrow could be South Africans. Tomorrow we could be celebrating Amampiano tomorrow, right? And the next minute it could be Makosa. Makosa could start becoming a new thing, and we can start celebrating it. And no country should steal the thunder or the glory from another country because you are not happy that you're not getting the spotlight. And that is what Ghana, to me, again, not the entire Ghana, not the entire Ghana, I wouldn't say, but a lot of Ghanaians need to step up and say, hey, we are celebrating Africa, we're celebrating Nigeria today, just like Nigeria celebrated Ghana back in the 1920s, 1930s, which is why Fela was influenced with High Life. Nigerians celebrated that. So when we did that back then, why can't Ghana really support and shut down those voices like these guy that goes around on the internet spewing garbage, right?
Even the Afrobeat, we have so many genres of music inside. You know, we have juju, we have Fuji, we have we have jazz, everything inside inside Afrobeats.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. Thank you so much for your contribution. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, guys, this will end this show. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Please like the video. Also share the content of this, as well as just go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I will also be seeing you all next time when I do have another live show. And until then, stay peaceful.
My side, oh, I. Så det du rör på det får mig att